Hey guys, and welcome back to the Franchise Tag Podcast Season 3. We're on number 3, baby. Episode 1, official first episode of the season. We had our episode last week, basically going over the full season overview and a couple fun things there. But this time around, of course, check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Literally wherever you get your podcasts. We are everywhere. Links in the description for that through the link tree. And we are going to go back through a week 1 recap and then talk about some rookie debuts, talk about some week 1 overreactions as our little segment video, and then we'll get into the week 2 overview type segment, some of our favorite games from that, and we'll go from there. So, would you like to kick us off with Thursday Night Football, where the Cowboys and Eagles had quite the game?
Yeah, off rip, pretty interesting. First play, a return, of course, as every NFL game. There's immediately an injury, and then there's immediately an ejection on the ensuing prep for the play for the drive after, with Jalen Carter going ahead and spitting at Dak, and that whole fiasco there. And I'm not sure what it was. Clearly, like, there's no way Jalen Carter's that crucial to the Eagles' defensive line, where the Cowboys had a run game that functioned, and no one saw that coming. Um, but like, that was a pretty competitive Cowboys team in that matchup, despite the fact that we don't really see them being very competitive throughout the rest of the season. That's what
Yeah,
really
I mean
like
the
was
Cowboys
shown.
have yeah, I mean the Cowboys have always had their strong offense, right? They've had
Hmm.
Dak, they have CeeDee Lamb, they added George Pickens, so we thought the passing attack would be where it's at. They kind of lost the running back edge, but I think I'm a little higher on Javonte Williams inside my soul than I am vocally, but I always thought because he got injured really early on, and it was an injury that typically takes a couple years to return to form, but
Hmm.
he's still pretty young. I think he's still like 24, 25. Like he's still very young, even for running backs, and still getting back to top form. And seeing that on the Cowboys, I mean, not an amazing offensive line, but he's able to at least run successfully. And while Jalen Carter probably isn't that necessary for the Eagles, he was kind of like a fringe number 1 overall pick candidate
Hmm.
at one point. So like he is good. He is damn good. Arguably going to be stepping into Depoy talk soon. Like he's a very good player, and to get rid of him from an ejection, like that's a huge plus to
Yeah.
the Cowboys and a huge boost to their offense as a whole. And I think the other thing that kind of took air out of the tires for the Eagles was the delay.
Yeah.
And there was like an hour long delay where there was bad weather in the area, and so they paused the game for an hour. We saw it again on Sunday with the Panthers Jaguars game,
Hmm.
but the the win and the sales just didn't seem to be there as much as it was last season for the Eagles. And whether that's, getting off to a slow start like some teams do, or whether that's something to focus on going forward, or if it's time to start maybe respecting the Cowboys a little bit. I'm not going to be doing that last one,
No.
but it's a possibility at the very least.
Yeah, I think, with the start to the game and then the way like it was a major delay. After that major delay, there was like hardly any scoring. It just felt like nobody was comfortable at that point going on. Um, Despite several attempts by, Dallas to get CeeDee Lamb the ball after that delay. It was going through his arms. It was just not a very good, we'll say, like, not good play across the board after the delay. Everyone's coming back with like kind of already out of the mind state and having to get back into it with not that much time left. It was a little weird. Um, but honestly, like Saquon, the run game in this was the shocking side to me. Saquon underperformed behind. Yeah, the Eagles' offensive line is pretty great, and then the Cowboys' defensive line was holding that up. And then on the flip side, the offensive line of the Cowboys, where we don't really look at that as a really praised unit, and then you go ahead and here we have a good, serviceable rushing game that does enough things for you. Where we kind of thought that coming in, they were going to have a bad rushing game. But enough with Thursday Night
Yeah, I mean,
Football, unless you got
yeah.
something.
I was just gonna add the Cowboys have been adding to that offensive line, so it's
Yeah.
about time that it shows like that it is
Hmm.
somewhat viable for all the first round picks they've spent on O line. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's move on to Friday night. The Chiefs Chargers divisional matchup, another one to kick the season off, another divisional matchup. And this one was interesting. This one was another classic. Last season we had, it felt like 17 games of the Chiefs one score game coming down to the wire. and it was just perfect for them to come back and win it. And we'll get through the start of the game and then to the end of the game, which is the part that I can talk about because I was actually watching at that point.
Hmm.
I tried my best to avoid the rest of the game, but I did start watching towards the end. So if you want to talk about the start and the Xavier Worthy injury and all that stuff, go for it.
Yeah, I mean the injury kind of just sucks outright. It's odd to see this trend of the Patriot or sorry, whoa, of the Chiefs, dude. I flash back like 10 years of the Chiefs being the
Yeah,
ones to just take out their own guys. We saw it last year with Rasheed Rice and Mahomes, and now here we have Kelsey and Worthy, and that really piles up issues for the Chiefs. Where it definitely seems like they're gonna have to lean heavy on Hollywood Brown going forward because they don't have much else. Like, yeah, there's Juju, and he's been there, and he's gonna keep doing that like little Kelsey shuffle, uh, and they're gonna have two Kelseys out there and be mildly successful. But you don't have Rasheed Rice, who was really electric for them, and then you don't have Xavier Worthy, the guy who came in to be like the lightning rod. So they're gonna have to lean a lot on Hollywood Brown. Need him to make the impact that we kind of have been wanting to see from Hollywood Brown for a few years. But it was a tight game. It was a tight matchup, and really, it didn't feel like at any point the Chiefs are out of it because, of course, you have Mahomes and he's doing like pretty outlandish things, and you're just sitting there and like, whoa. But man,
yeah. I did
everything came
see I did
together.
see some of those things he was doing, and they were absolutely outlandish. So I will give him his props on the little Levis type flip pass as he's falling down, but this one was successful, and
Mhm.
you know. It seems like Levis wants to be Mahomes. He wants to be that like savior of the team, but he just doesn't have the ability for it. And um, of course, I'm talking about weeks. I feel like it was 1 to 4 last year, where every week it felt like we could put Will
Something
Levis on a
comical.
thumbnail.
Yep.
So,
No.
um, but
Um.
yeah, the
Go ahead.
the the Hollywood Brown stuff is kind of crazy. I mean, it was what 10 for 99. Like he
Yeah.
had 10 catches and I feel like 16 targets or something like he was getting the ball thrown his way a
Mm-hmm.
ton, and just like for the volume, not producing, honestly. Like
Yeah.
100 yards is nothing to scoff at, but when you're getting 16 targets and 10 catches, you kind of hope that
You
at
can
least
break.
one of those
Yeah.
goes for some yardage, especially as Hollywood Brown, a guy who's a little speedier, a little bit shiftier, a little bit better after the catch as well, and less so that Juju type catch it and fall. Um, the other thing that I would be interested in if Xavier Worthy does miss time, because it's not guaranteed that he will.
Yeah.
He's day to day with the dislocated shoulder. But if he does, I'm curious to see if they bring Tyquan Thornton in to get some of those deep shots because he is on that team now, and that's his forte is speed. That's all
Mm-hmm.
he's got in his game is just speed. So send him deep, open up some of the underneath stuff for Hollywood, and then obviously Kelsey and Juju. Um, but yeah, on the flip side, Chargers, man,
Yep.
they won it.
Mm-hmm. Everything started to come together. I mean, we saw Quentin Johnston catching footballs, um, and I really like to see that. Like, he had a great game in his own right, but just like the way the Chargers operated, it just felt everything's coming up. If man, everything's leaning his way. Um,
We're
it was a
finally in
great
the right
game. Yeah,
timeline.
we finally enough. What's it called? Enough Mandela effects occurred where now Justin Herbert is getting all these things to go his way. Um, it was really just a
If
great
he
game,
keeps
man.
this up,
Yeah. Week one multiplied across 18 games. He's having a great year. If he.
yeah, if he keeps that up,
Uh-huh.
yeah. At the end of the game, there it was Chris Jones that broke contain on the last
Yeah.
play where Herbert broke off the 19-yard run, and that was the play that I was watching. That I was like, this is where the Chiefs make a stop, get the ball back, score a touchdown, and crush my hopes and dreams.
Hmm.
And I'm so happy that they didn't. Like I'm genuinely ecstatic that they finally lost a game that it felt like they should have, and maybe not should have lost. Obviously, they were in it. It's
Hmm.
not like they were handed chances and chances and chances, but they lost a game that felt like it was winnable for the other team, and it felt like they didn't do that last season. The only games they lost, it didn't feel like it was winnable for the Chiefs at all. So I guess it's just good to see that they're not there's no black magic going on this year. So I'm just, you know, weight off my chest to have that. But we can move off the Chiefs and go into Sunday if you would like to get us started, or I can,
Yeah,
either one.
I think I got one last thing on the Chiefs game, and or not even on the game really. It's just the Chiefs are currently the only one in the division with a loss, and they've allowed the most points in the division. I think maybe their time is up, and yeah, I think it's time for them to really just start retiring, just move on. You had your wins, just start a full
Mahomes,
rebuild.
you got your contract.
Yep.
Go on.
Mm-hmm. Full rebuild. But I think you've got a nice thing to tee off Sunday for us.
Yeah. So last season, Justin Fields was on the Steelers, and we were big Fields advocates. And through the first 6 to 7 games, we were big Fields advocates, and we were saying, he's not stuffing the stat sheet, he's not MVP, but he's definitely doing what he has to.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers are winning games. He deserves the starting job. And what do? But bench him because they didn't want to give up a higher draft pick. That is quite literally the only reason that I can think of that you would bench a quarterback when you're 4-1.
Yeah.
Like that's it. There's no other reason to bench your quarterback when you're winning games other than you didn't want to give up that 4th round pick. And I am so happy that he looked as good as he did against the Steelers. Ultimately, the Jets, they did lose the game. The revenge game was not fully executed to my levels of hope. Aaron Rodgers got his revenge on the Jets. I'll get into him in a minute, but Justin Fields looked like he was at Ohio State again. Like that's the best way I can put it. There were still those occasional plays where you just saw him take a huge shot, and it's like, okay, so he's still in college. He's still taking those huge shots and like watching somebody fly at him and hit him in the face. And you hope that that's gone, but ultimately it's not. And he's a little reckless, but he's built for it. He's bigger. And so he can take some of those hits. Obviously, you still hope he doesn't, but he survived them all so far and is fine and wasn't injured last game. But he was also in the pocket, throwing over the middle. He stepped up in the pocket, was able to navigate past rushers and through his offensive line and step up in the pocket and get loose and get not just scramble out around, but actually scramble up through the offensive line and then still keep his eyes downfield and find receivers. He wasn't, oh, it's, I'm feeling a little pressure, tuck it and run. It was, I'm feeling a little pressure, let me dance forward in the pocket. It was almost like Lamar when we see him dance in the pocket. Obviously not to that caliber. I am not at all saying that Fields has the pocket presence that Lamar Jackson does, because I don't think anybody does. But it was that level of, you can see the talent there and the dancing and the ability to evade pressure and the stockiness to maybe avoid some arm tackles and get loose, and then the evolution of him still keeping his eyes downfield, which is something we haven't seen from him much before, where he's still launching darts over the middle after he breaks through the line and is a couple inches from the line of scrimmage. He's still looking for the pass, which is a huge thing. And I'm sure you can get into Tanner Engstrand, the Jets offensive coordinator who was on the Lions for so long, and the positive impacts that he may have had on Fields. But then we get into the flip side, the Steelers, where they won the game. Rodgers had an impeccable stat line, but watching him, it just didn't feel like he did. Like anytime there was the slightest amount of pressure, if somebody got a hand near him, he was sacked. That's what it felt like. Every single time there was the slightest bit of pressure, he just went down. And I think it's a combination of his age and inability to move just with his age, as well as the fear with that Achilles injury from a couple years ago that he's not as healthy as he once was, and he's still worried about losing some of those, key mobility things with those injuries, and the concern about further injuries, where anytime that somebody broke through the line or anytime somebody like pushed the line back, it felt like he was just like looking for a safe spot to go curl up in a ball and take the sack. So his incompletions weren't crazy, but it's because he wasn't standing in the pocket and getting rid of the ball. He was taking a sack if there was pressure. And it's a horrible thing to watch, to see a quarterback who cannot stand in the pocket, when on the other side, you've got the epitome of standing in the pocket and taking those hits, but getting rid of the ball as if your life depends on it. And so just the stark contrast between the two, and what felt like the inability of Rodgers to move at all, was like, they won the game, but my optimism is much higher in the Jets' favor than it is in the Steelers' favor going forward this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tight match, but it doesn't really propel me into, really flipping my stance on the Steelers, where I I view them as a team that did get worse, and they're not going to be able to maintain for a full season success. You know, they're gonna do their usual split of winning half and losing half, but they're not going to pretend to get much better, because we're still going to have games that are coming down to the wire where you need a 60-yard field goal to make it, and you won't always make that 60-yard field goal. And that's just the fact of life. Now, Boz definitely has a higher
I
chance
was
than
gonna
most,
say,
but
if anybody would be making it every time, it's the boss.
yeah.
But
I do want to say, as you brought up, Tanner Engstrand and the Jets' like offensive performance there, I did notice as I went through and I rewatched some of those highlights and some of the plays that they're coming out in. There's definitely a lean into being under center. There's definitely a lean into having two tight ends on the field, and when they're doing those things, they're being effective because they're able to operate off of the play action. And there's so much of an emphasis, I'll say, on doing the play action, setting up the run, and also having an effective run game, which they did in that game. So being able to factor all of these things together to be under center and then, fake a handoff and roll out of it, and still, whether he wants to keep it or run it, it's Justin Fields. He can do either. And I think really that opens up for them. Whereas, when they're play scheming for Jared Goff, you don't have a whole lot of like, oh yeah, no, he'll run and pick up 10 on this one. If there's no one open downfield, you would just trust that he would get the ball out. But really, I think as you see with the Jets and the Bears, with the offensive, masterminds departing from Detroit and getting towards these new teams and seeing how they're performing there, it's kind of that same scheme. It's that same mold. They're going to be trying to establish a run, and off of that, they're going to do the play action, and they're going to have two tight ends on the field because that's the most effective way that they know how to scheme it up. Now,
yeah, and before we get into the
Yeah.
Lions, real quick, the last thing I wanted to address, as we were talking about, the Lions' history with the coaches from there, Aaron Glenn, obviously, he got diced by Justin Fields, as a member of the Bears. I mean, you remember, I don't know if the
Yeah.
viewers remember, but anytime Justin Fields played against the Lions, it felt like he could do whatever he wanted to. And that was against Aaron Glenn or company. And it's kind of a thing of like you're seeing a guy dice you up and you're like, I know this guy has talent because there's no way our defense is just atrocious and there's no way I'm this bad. It's got to be Justin Fields, and it is. He just has to be utilized properly and given the opportunities and given the weapons. And his chemistry with Garrett Wilson was so nice to see. They played together back at Ohio State and were amazing there. And like I cannot emphasize enough how excited I now am to watch Jets football. And it's felt like forever since I can say that. And I hope that Jets fan is still watching our videos and
Oh,
can hear
man.
us gush about them a little
Yeah.
bit. But man,
Dude, honestly, it's
what a
just
scene from them.
just I was excited for the Jets heading into the season and seeing their offseason moves and the way that just really happy they acquired Fields even, but if we want to go a little bit advanced on them, like that was a great performance from the offense. When you compare it to the whole league, like that was a great game from them, and just couldn't squeak it out in the end. But there's going to be weeks this year when they do, and there's going to be some where they win by a lot more than needing to squeak it out. But getting into a more dour note on the day of, with those Lions that lost all that offensive prowess in the mental, in the coaching aspect of it all. Yeah, it was rough. It was difficult for the Lions to do much when they have Micah Parsons, who's even on a snap count, being as dominant and as much of a problem as he was, while the Lions were not their usual self in the trenches department. You had Hutch not really making an impact whatsoever, and then on the flip side, Penei Sewell, perennial All-Pro tackle, is kind of getting bullied by Micah, and he's holding his own, yes, but the pressure is still there. It's still being pushed up into Goff's lap. And yeah, Micah Parsons is that guy. So I'm not too concerned about that moving forward. But what I am concerned about is the new faces we had on the interior of the offensive line, who miscommunication was the name of the game that Sunday, because it was rookie Tate Ratledge leaving a D tackle unblocked multiple times. Him and Graham Glasgow clearly not communicating as that center to guard, who's meant to take this D tackle, as they both part the C and let him right through. And that happened at crucial points of the game where the Lions are backed up to like their own 5, I think was after the punt, and then now you're down to the 1 after that, and it just, now this is a wash of a series. You just have to kind of play it safe and get this punt out. But I'm not super worried moving forward, because I know this is a new reconstructed offensive line, new faces, new places, and you're just gonna have to get through that communication, especially with the rookie coming in. It's just hard to see it, especially on the defensive side, where I feel like they actually improved, but they were not improved against the Packers O-line.
Yeah. And then I really don't have anything to add about the Packers Lions game. Honestly, I didn't catch too much of it. I caught a bit here and there, but yeah, Micah, amazing. And he, after the game, he had said basically to Penei Sewell, "Hey, it was Lane for 4 years. Now it's you. I've got a vendetta against you, and it's
Yeah.
just because you're the best tackle in the division, and I'm gonna give my all against you to show that I can still produce." So it's not like Micah has been dealing with scrubs in the NFC East and then goes to the NFC North and is, put in his place. Like, he's been dealing with the best offensive line in football as his main rival for the first 4 years of his career.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's new to the whole good O-line thing. But yeah, I think Lions fans everywhere, do not overreact. You'll get the chemistry back. It's just there were a lot of losses in the offseason, and it wasn't just coaches, but it was, like you said, those new offensive linemen that are coming in, and the coaches especially, but Hutch coming back. He's going to be slow to get back to his top form because he's been out of games for almost a full year now.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's, you expect everything to be put together week 1. And I believe in my pick'ems. By the way, shout out pick'ems. Go join, link below, if you would like to compete against us in pick'ems. That's how we're doing it this year. I believe I picked the Packers actually over the Lions just because I thought they would have that chemistry a little bit better because they didn't really lose anybody huge. But
Yeah.
moving into Sunday night, holy. We've got our franchise tagged player of the week for week 1, Josh Allen of the Bills. It was almost Derrick Henry. If the Ravens had won the game, probably would have been Derrick Henry.
Minus
no
one
cliff for
fumble,
him.
it's Derrick Henry.
Yeah, for real. There is no cliff for Derrick Henry. He does not have the aging problem that running backs do. So he is ascended beyond the running back position. He is pure football player. I don't know when he will stop playing football. I think it will be when he decides that he has accomplished all there is to accomplish. And I think that until that day, fear the Ravens. Even though they lost this one, tough. But Derrick Henry, insane. Lamar did what he had to. This was another one of those games where you see, sub 300 yards or sub 200 yards from him, and or like right around the 200-yard mark from him, and around 20 pass attempts. But when he doesn't need to throw the ball that many times to put up 40 points, like,
yeah, why would you?
the offense is successful, and Lamar was successful in running it. It's just tough that the defense couldn't stop the Bills from scoring 41. And Kyle Hamilton was so close on that game-winning field goal. He got a finger on that ball. I don't know if you saw that, but he actually did get a finger on the ball.
Oof.
And it still went through. But yeah, game of inches there, and a game of the year contender, front runner for sure. It feels like it is anytime these two teams match up, and we were just blessed with it Sunday night, week 1.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here's one thing that I was thinking as the game was going on, because for a long part of the game, there was a 3-possession lead in favor of the Ravens. But no matter what, every time that the Bills took the field, I was thinking, like, that's going to get closer. Like, they are keeping pace. They're eventually, something's going to fall in their favor. They're still in this, despite being down 15 points and very little time being left. They were playing like they were going to win it. They weren't playing, downtrodden. They weren't getting into 3rd and longs. They weren't in these, between rocks and hard places. They were moving the ball. and they were still being capable despite the huge deficit they're in. And so, despite being in, as I said, a 2 to 3 possession, if you want to assume 2 possession to be 14, go for it, 16. But they're in a big deficit the whole game. And then you get around to the last few moments and you have these little flips of luck that happen where, the Ravens, they end up having to punt. They go 3-and-out. Okay. It is what it is. You're probably not going to go for it on like a 4th-and-4 or whatever it was. You've got a lot of time. You've got a solid lead. Why risk that? And then you get the fumble after their touchdown, which is very, very rare for Derrick Henry to even happen across an opportunity for someone to strip the ball away from him, because usually they're like 4 feet away from him in the air, flying, about to hit the ground. But the fact that they lucked into that fumble just 2 plays into a drive that was definitely going to be a milk the clock drive, and then they go ahead and everything just keeps falling in their favor. They get the immediate stop on that next drive that they really needed. It was electric. Like, the whole time you're watching, you're not really losing faith in the Bills to pull through. And then it gets a little thinner, and then there's that fumble, and you're like, it's immediate. They're gonna get this.
Yeah, it was almost like the end of the Chiefs game where I was like, they have the timeouts. It's 3rd and 19. It's the Chiefs game to lose at this point, and then different outcomes in that one.
Mm-hmm.
But we can move on into Monday Night Football. The Vikings and Bears. It's not technically rookie versus rookie, but honestly, Caleb Williams, brand new coach, I feel like it's basically his rookie season again. His first real shot at success because of the whole Eberflus situation. But let's get into that. JJ McCarthy versus Caleb Williams in a divisional matchup versus with young QBs, second-year QBs in their first real games.
Yeah, it was a streaky game. I'll say that, because the Vikings could not get nothing to fall their way. I think in the first half they might have punted 4 to 5 times. They were not making the most of their opportunities with the ball, and a lot of those I felt like were 3-and-outs. 3rd down was their weakness throughout the entire game. I can't remember if it was their second touchdown, like late touchdown. Actually, they didn't have a touchdown until then. So yeah, it would have been their second touchdown. I think was the one where they said on the broadcast, like, and that was their first conversion on 3rd down. And I was like, what? And really just a real streaky game, as I said. The Vikings couldn't get a foothold. They couldn't get to the line of scrimmage before having like 10 seconds on the clock. So JJ McCarthy, first real game of NFL football, is having to diagnose things with sub 10 seconds, make motions, and have the snap get off, and expect to execute a play perfectly. That wasn't happening. But, Brian Flores really turned up the heat, and that's when they got ready to go, and that's when they started rolling.
Yeah, and I, going into the season, I wasn't super concerned about the Vikings production-wise on offense, because yes, it's a rookie quarterback. Yes, we've never seen him hit the field before. College team wasn't the flashiest, but it's KOC. It really is, and that's kind of all it is trusting Kevin O'Connell, trusting his ability to take any quarterback and make them look great. And if we want to move over to the Seahawks, Sam Darnold looked okay. But as soon as he's out of that Viking system, he just, falls a little bit. And that's exactly what I assumed would happen. And, we'll get into week 1 true overreactions later, but I do want to say that Geno looked a hell of a lot better than Sam Darnold did in week 1. So Geno was, the epitome of what they call an ethical hooper. He was high percentage throws, getting the ball to where he needs to get it to, not taking too many risks, and they won the game. So, we can, if you would like, we can move off. If you have nothing else to say about Monday night, we can move off into talking about the rookies, who we did not mention, because there were some big games from rookies, some big impacts from the young players.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get right on into that. I mean, as I feel is a decent segue with you bringing up, Geno and his role. It was the Ashton Jeanty, they gave him the touches. They gave him the keys to the offense. We're going to run the ball. We're going to use you. and he had a couple of good runs, 10 plus or nearing 10 yards at least, yard runs. And then it was just like, all right, we're going to get hit at the line of scrimmage. Oh, we're going to get hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Oh, that was the line of scrimmage. Oh, hey, we gained a yard and then you got hit. And then you carried them for 3. That's pretty good. And behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And that was the game for Ashton Jeanty. It's
I'm
not
curious. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm curious who it's more on, if it's the offensive line of the Raiders or the defensive line of the Patriots, because that is a pretty good unit as far as run stopping goes. Harold Landry, new addition, not a great pass rusher, but oh boy, can he stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
Barmore obviously in there, he's a big body in the middle to both pass and run stop, but he's definitely better in the run stopping department. Curious Tonga's a huge nose tackle that we use now. And there were so many additions to that defensive line that I'm much more optimistic moving forward, just knowing that we didn't let Jeanty do Jeanty things. And even if it was against the Raiders O-line, which we talked about, I think this is less of a thing to say definitively whose fault it was, and more of a thing to say, wow, let's keep an eye on the Patriots defensive line from now on and keep an eye on the Raiders offensive line and see if it was just, one was outmatched, or if it was one's fault over the other. If Jeanty continues to have bad games, if the Raiders offensive line continues to suck, we start to look at that unit as the biggest point of rebuild for them. And if the Patriots continue to stuff the run, then maybe we look at them as a top run defense, holding Jeanty to, sub 3 yards a carry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great unit, and it felt like any play that Jeanty was able to get past the line of scrimmage, like, okay, he's getting his head of steam and he's getting his yardage like we would expect. And whether or not that be, hey, the Raiders can't block for shit except for like these 3 plays out of a 30 play workload, or as you stated, all of these big bodies, all of this reformed defensive line for the Patriots, coming together to really quell this electric rookie. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if the answer was both.
Yeah, honestly. If Jeanty goes like, 3.5 yards a carry for the rest of his rookie season and the Patriots look a little better than they did last year, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
But we can move on to some of the other running back debuts. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Bill Krosky Merritt, for those of you that know ball. 10 for 82, and RJ Harvey 6 for 70, both solid debuts for the rookies.
Efficient, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And Krosky Merritt was a huge name in training camp, and through the preseason, he was the promised one, or the
prince that was promised.
The prince that was he was the prince that was promised, Prince Bill, of course. And so I'm not going to say that I'm unsurprised to see that he did well, but I'm glad that it wasn't just training camp hype, because that's always the lens we have to look at things through is, we're hearing a lot about these players, but how much of it is real? How much of it is just, this guy is faster than he's ever been. This guy is looks younger than he ever has. This guy is healthier and stronger and put on weight, but is faster. And, everybody looks amazing in training camp.
He's bigger. I feel like I see that better.
Tweet crop up. He's bigger. He's better. And then RJ Harvey, shout out UCF, the Knights, go Knights down in Florida. He did pretty good, and that's a pretty open running back room, I would say, in Denver. Yeah. So to show out as a rookie, pretty good offensive line. So I'm not gonna say I'm super surprised that it happened, that he looked good, but great performance from both the young guys.
Yeah, and then if we want to escape what I would consider great performances from these running backs. And move into the little wide receiver on wide receiver rookie matchup that we highlighted last week with the Panthers and the Jags. It's middling, I'll say. We saw Tet have the biggest workload of the Panthers offense. However, the Panthers offense could not get going in the slightest in that game. And, you're the best productive guy, sure, of one of the least productive offenses of week 1. That really, hurts the pride a bit. But, a solid little rate he had. Decent routes. I saw great catches from him. It's just, going to be pretty few and far between if the Panthers keep this pace up. Meanwhile, Travis Hunter, I mean, this guy ran so many hitches for Colorado that he was able to just turn into big plays, and those big plays aren't coming to him, and they're just ending up being these average hitches that he's hitting, um, at least through week 1 of the NFL season. I didn't see much of anything about him on the defense. Did you happen to catch any of that, of those, like, those specialty packages they wanted to use
Yeah,
him on?
there was one highlight play I saw. He was actually playing boundary, which I thought was really interesting, and he was manned up on Tet. So I thought that was cool to see rookie on rookie. Tet did beat him, but he was giving him cushion, and it was just a little hitch from Tet. Um, but there was one play from Travis Hunter on offense. I don't know if you saw it, but it was the one-handed interception by J.C. Horn. Not a bad throw by Trevor Lawrence. Beautiful route by Travis Hunter. Nobody ahead of him. Would have been like an 80-plus yard touchdown for him easily. And J.C. Horn just made this super acrobatic diving one-handed interception to stop that play. And it was just like the most heartbreaking, what a debut this could have been for Travis Hunter if this had gone through.
Yeah,
Uh,
what a play
but
that would
other
have
than
been.
that,
Highlight reel.
it was a lot of the short targets. It was a lot of just get him the ball, see what he could do with it, get his feet wet. It was a few catches for like 20, 30 yards
Yeah.
and good
Yeah.
good first game and testing the waters of how much they can use him. And so that's going to be a learning curve for the coaching staff because it's not something you've worked with before. It's not something you've really gone through and said, all right, how much are we going to use this guy on offense and how much are we going to use him on defense? Because nobody's really played two ways, at least in recent in the scope of the current NFL
Modern
landscape.
NFL. Yeah.
Yeah.
But good things to see from them, that they are getting such early and big workloads. So going forward, as they get refined, as they settle into the role that they'll have, and hopefully their offenses perform better in terms of getting those air yards and getting the ball to them as the focal point of the offense. Definitely, I think, like, a good performance from them. Yeah, nothing too great, as I would say, middling. But it's something that really sets the stage for how special this next one we're going to talk about is. And I'll let you take the way on there. I've talked about Emeka a bit
Yeah.
on the channel before, and
And
I'll let you do it now.
this guy, entering the year, we kind of knew he was going to be the focal point of this Bucks offense because leading receiver in yardage at Ohio State in his career, which is just an insane group to be in, much less to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Godwin is injured to start the year. So it's, he's taking that high volume slot role from Godwin and he turned it into 2 touchdowns his first game. Like this is a guy who is, I would argue, one of the most pro ready prospects in the class, where he is, ready to step onto the field, run good routes, catch the ball, and make an impact. He's not the flashiest receiver ever, but he will get behind you. He will beat you across your face. Like he will make you miss him on a route. He will make the just the perfect cuts at the right time, and he will catch the ball. So having a guy like Baker throwing him the ball as well is huge, where it's somebody who can just trust his receiver because he's cocky. So he's going to want to put the ball where his receiver can get it. There was just a beautiful throw I saw that was perfectly layered. And it was just a dart from Baker. I think it was Egbuka's first touchdown. It was just like could not have been placed any better. And that's just what you get when you give a I wouldn't say reckless. I wouldn't say Baker's reckless, but a quarterback
No,
that has the
he'll take the
confidence of
chances,
Baker
though.
Mayfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not like
He's got the confidence.
Jordan Love
And when you give him
reckless, but
yeah.
he'll put it where he wants to.
When you give him a solid target like Egbuka, where he's just like the epitome of reliable, and that's just such a great combo, and that's why Mike Evans has done so well, and why Chris Godwin has done so well, and for Egbuka to be able to learn from those two guys, maybe less so from Mike Evans because they play different styles of football, but Godwin especially is just the perfect mentor for Emeka entering the league, and it's shown in week 1 already.
Yeah, those early returns immediately coming out. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I've talked a lot about Emeka Egbuka on the channel. I did the scouting report on him. I did the post draft report on him, and this is more than I expected early on, but it's due to that Chris Godwin absence, that it's immediacy. it's in your face. He's going to be a weapon that they're going to lean on because he's a weapon that you definitely can lean on being a focal point on the offense. And he's operating out of his, primo exactly where you want him on the field in that slot. I'm a big fan of it. But if you want to segue us.
Yeah, I'll do a little intro for us and we'll get into our segment. So to you podcast viewers, get ready for this because it's gonna sound like I'm introing a regular video. But all right, 3, 2, 1. Week 1 of the NFL is over, and that means we have some big overreactions for you. We're going to talk about who's going to the Super Bowl just off of Week 1 performances, and we're going to talk about who's going to be picking first overall, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know who you've got written down. I've got some gimmies, some things that we already knew going into the season, but that were confirmed, and then I've got some deeper cuts that are like true overreactions to Week 1.
Yeah, no,
And
I think we start on the high end. We start with that, like, the out of your mind, who's doing it, who's gonna make it all the way, who's hosting the Lombardi at the end of the year here, because the brewing of this segment was, and hey, if you're watching the plain video that comes out, this is actually a segment of our larger podcast, which will drop tomorrow if you're watching day of release. If not, go ahead, click on the channel, and it's probably already up there. But getting back into it, this kind of started brewing as I'm looking at all of these teams and how they played Week 1. Who do I think has the least question marks? Because the person with the least question marks that I know the most about, who's going to be good, you can obviously project them to go to the Super Bowl. And so I want to hear your thoughts first on who's those Super Bowl teams. What's that Super Bowl matchup going to be?
It's Bills Ravens are the two contenders for me. They can't play in the Super
No.
Bowl, unfortunately, as much as I would absolutely love for them to. That would be such an electric Super Bowl. But I truly believe they are the two best teams in football right now. I think going into the season, I would have probably had that opinion with the Eagles as like a close third, swap them into like those top three, swap them any way you want. And those are the top 3 teams in football. And I think going into Week 2, it's the Eagles it's the Bills and the Ravens, and then it's everybody else beneath them. I think they are a big step ahead of everybody, and that's my kind of non-overreaction that is just a confirmation of what we already thought going into the year.
Yeah. I mean, with that, on the flip side, of course, the initial thought is like the Eagles. Now, did the Eagles look their usual self versus that Cowboys team? No. But across the NFC, you're looking at these teams and you're thinking, that was a pretty close matchup. Oh, that was a pretty close matchup. Oh, wow. That one was also decided by one score. It's almost like there's the one top dog, and even the top dog is going to be a tight game. I'm going to have to, of course, lean in favor of the preconceived top dog, the Super Bowl winners, with that NFC nod for that Super Bowl chip. But, with the Bills and the Ravens, with that matchup, I stated earlier on, the Bills are the ones that kept them alive. They kept themselves in the game, and they managed to make that huge push in the late game to overcome that 15-point deficit that they were at. But the Ravens almost had bad luck that gave that away to them. So I'm almost favoring the Ravens because they were the ones that were able to create that lead, and they just had those unfortunate circumstances that are rare for this team that propped up and really got in their face. So I'm going to be picking the Ravens over the Bills despite the fact that they just lost, because it's felt so fluky of a loss as opposed to what you would normally see out of the Ravens, where they get a big lead and then they keep that big lead because they are just going to run the ball at you and you can't really stop them. And so with that Super Bowl matchup, I would have Ravens and the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the Ravens were the better team, and I didn't write it down in my notes or anything, but that was my thought when I said Bills and Ravens are the best 2 teams in football. I was like, one team won, the other team is better.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but it did. And then I do want to get into some deep cuts. I don't know if you have anybody that's like just a wild outside shot or shout out that's like, this team is one of the better ones in the league. I have actually the opposite. I'm going to go on a limb and say that there is a very non-zero chance that the Dolphins end up with the first overall pick this year.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that.
That was a rough look. It's
truly
when when a team that we put in the currently tanking tier of our tier list that we put out last week goes ahead and drops 33 on your head, it is a difficult thing to stomach, and it's difficult to then imagine that things aren't about to fall apart for you as a team.
Yeah.
It's just going to be rough. As I went through this last season, right? I was like, no, I'm going to believe in Tua until he gives me a reason not to. And then he gave me so many reasons not to. So I'm not going to get burned again. I came into this season, I'm expecting nothing out of Tua. And, oh, hey, that's what he gave us. Nice.
Nothing. The other thing I wanted to bring up is somebody that I've talked about earlier in the podcast episode. So again, if you're here just for this segment video, go check out the full podcast. Hear me talk about the Jets, please. But the Jets, they truly looked amazing. I think Breece Hall had a return to form. You know, him with Engstrand, who worked so well with Gibbs, and with the Lions offense was the understudy to Ben Johnson, part of the success there. It really showed. And then obviously Justin Fields, who we have gushed about since before the Bears drafted Caleb Williams. We were talking about how Justin Fields has a shot, and seeing him finally get that shot and it not be on an incentive-laden contract that, would make us think that he could get benched for seemingly no reason other than, they don't want to pay a pick or a contract. I think the Jets are set up so well, and Fields is still young, and he looks so good in week 1, and his chemistry with Garrett Wilson and the strength of the running game with Breece Hall and the change of pace with Braylon Allen. It's just that offense is so much better than I thought it could be. And then the defense, not a great showing against the Steelers, but I saw Sauce Gardner actually making plays, which I didn't know he was still capable of.
He's back.
I had completely written him off as, he was great his rookie season and then has just started getting away with pass interference, and that's why he's still good. But he was actually making plays. He was not getting there early. He was breaking up passes. He was hitting the receivers. He was doing so well. And it's just revitalized this hope that I'm sure Jets fans everywhere have to see their team drop 30 points. Like, that hasn't happened recently. And to see that happen after losing Aaron Rodgers, who is supposed to be the savior of New York, and Devontae Adams, who is supposed to be his sidekick, and they were supposed to bring you to the promised land and get you to the playoffs at the very least, just for them to fall flat on their face.
Yeah.
To see this strength of this team just show out so much in week 1, I would go so far as to say the Jets might be second place in the AFC East. They might get a playoff berth.
Yeah, no, my overreaction on the Jets half would be, this is a playoff team. They just need to win enough games to show that. There's a lot of teams throughout the years that you'll see, notably like 3 years ago, Lions, when they went on a heater after starting 1-6, and that was a playoff team that didn't squeak in. But there's a lot of playoff teams that you see, like last year's Bengals with MVP Burrow, where they're just one game away from a different opponent losing, and they're in the playoffs, and they're the playoff team. I think the Jets are that playoff team. We just have to see them get there. We have to see them not have these obstacles come up of like, oh, this other, this opponent in your conference went ahead and got a win, so now you're out of it.
Yeah.
Now, to deviate from just having the same things to say about the same teams that you are, I'll go ahead and I'll throw in, what I think is a fairly, I don't know. I feel like I don't see a lot of media, so I'm not exactly regurgitating what I've seen a whole lot. But, I'll get into a team that I don't think you've, I don't want to just keep piggybacking opinions off of the ones you're saying. So I'll go ahead and get out there. With the Bengals, we have them as that playoff hopeful in our tier list that we did last week. Again, check out that video if you want to see where we had teams from our preseason point of view. And certainly things have changed already, but again, overreactions. So we can't really just immediately jump ship with that. But with the Bengals, I mean, it's not that the Browns are good. It surely can't be that the Browns are good, that the Bengals only won by a point. But boy, oh boy, does it kind of seem like the Bengals aren't going to be as good as expected. They usually win these matchups against the downtrodden Browns. as of late. And yet here we have very mild performance from, you know, very common pick of one overall of fantasy football across many, many leagues, Jamar Chase. And Joe Burrow also just not really having a great showing. And, they didn't do a whole lot. And they certainly let way too many points be put up by the Browns, who, or rather, not even too many points, just like why wasn't there any separation? Why did Joe Burrow not put the ball in the air successfully, really at all? It's Joe Flacco.
You want to know why it is? You want to know why it is, Elijah? It's because it's week one. It's week one, and it's the Bengals. They never perform in week one. They never do, ever, ever.
I'm gonna overreact, and I'm gonna say, damn it, they're missing the playoffs. We had them in that.
We can do this every year.
Next year, not doing it.
next year after the Bengals win the Super Bowl, you know what our week one overreaction is going to be? Super Bowl slump. The Bengals are not going to be good this year because they only put up 17 points in a 4-point loss to the Bears, whoever they play in week one next year. It's an
Titans.
every year kind of thing. It's an every year kind of thing where the Bengals just cannot do anything in week one. They look a little better in week two. By week 5, we're calling them Super Bowl favorites, and then their defense shits its pants and is, dragging their ass on the floor trying to clean it the rest of the year. We can have these overreactions all we want. I'm super happy to do it, but I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
Incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The offense is that poor, and Chase Brown, we'll see if that gets better. It's a rush game. It's a rushing group that I felt at least that we're not going to be able to see them reliably, lean on. It's going to be a team that has to put the ball in the air. But it certainly leaves a sour taste in your mouth when we saw the year that Joe Burrow came off of and how he was very consistent throughout that whole season versus now what we're seeing out of them and almost making the Browns look good is amazing.
Shocking.
It's a difficult thing to do.
It's honestly truly amazing. It is almost impossible. But I think that just about wraps up our segment, which was week 1 overreaction. So if you are just here for this short little video, about 10-15 minutes, go ahead and check out the full podcast dropping tomorrow to see our expanded thoughts on some of these teams, especially my thoughts on the Jets because I love them very much as a Patriots fan. Yes. I've loved them for many reasons over the years, mostly because they've been bad. This time it's because they're so damn entertaining. And drop a like, drop your thoughts on other overrated or overreactions that you may have had week 1, and stick around. Tomorrow, full podcast drops at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll get back to the full podcast. And I think, honestly, now that we're back to the regular podcast, to your regularly scheduled programming, there's only one thing I want to say about the games before I shout out Pick'ems and we start wrapping up. I'm sure you've got your game that you want to talk about, but I just want to put the Bills on upset watch versus the Jets, man. We just came off the overreactions video. I'm a little bit high on the Jets, and I'm a little bit excited, a little bit hyped, if you will, for what may come. Probably won't come, but what may come. So yeah, just want to put the Bills on upset watch. Not saying I think they'll lose. Not saying I'm picking the Jets. I'm just saying they're on upset watch. There's a chance. There's a sliver of hope for the Jets here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. I think it'll be a good game. I'm not going to say that they're going to win, but I think it'll be a fun, competitive one throughout. I think I'll be a little bit of a homer.
Cut to an image of the Bills winning 45-0.
I think I'll be a bit of a homer here with the pick of the Bears visiting the Lions. It's a very quick reunion with Ben Johnson. And, both of these teams lost week 1. It's going to be hard to go ahead and watch them face off and not... Man, seeing Ben in that dark blue, I hated that. So it's going to be even rough seeing him at Ford Field doing that. But I think this is one it's going to be a little tighter because we saw the growing pains that the Lions are going through. The Bears, they were streaky. They had their script that worked great in the first part of the game. And then once they got out of that pre-planned, heavily practiced, scripted plays, then they started to falter. And so you start to see those going head to head. That's going to be one to watch, I think, especially with the added division atmosphere of that. But do you have any other highlight games?
I don't. I there's good games every week. There's more than one good game every week. I just wanted to bring attention to that Jets Bills matchup. I was looking on ESPN Pick'ems, which is, by the way, where we're doing Pick'ems this year. There will be a link in the description down below. Click on that if you would like to join us and fight against us in our Pick'ems battle. I right now am up. I'm 10-6, 10-6. You're 9-7.
9-7, yep.
I think it's just because I picked the Packers over the Lions, and you probably
yeah.
homered that pick.
No, I did
So
because I saw the Packers and I thought, because I had this thought preseason. I was like, damn, looking at this schedule for the Lions, we could be 1-5 again, and we would still be a good team because that's how difficult our opening slate is. But if I'm going to pick the Lions to lose, who am I? Who am I?
yeah, it's like me. I'll always pick the Patriots to win. They're not gonna, but I'll pick them.
Yeah.
But anyways, join that Pick'ems in the description. Click on that link and join. Play against us. And I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, I was looking at the ESPN Pick'ems, and it was 97% Bills, 3% Jets, and that's what made me want to put it on upset watch because
Yeah.
I think the Jets have more than a 3% chance of winning that game.
Yeah,
Week 1 overreaction, of course, but
of course.
that's all I've got for the people.
Yeah, I think in the same vein of like this is probably going to be a closer matchup. You wouldn't have really thought so, but Broncos Colts, that I
Litmus test for sure.
I
The
it's
Broncos
going to
did not look
be
as good as they should have.
it's going to be a difficult uphill battle for the Colts against that defense. But the Broncos weren't also as effective, as efficient on offense as they probably want to be. So both sides of the coin here. I think that one's going to be a fun one to watch in that late afternoon slate.
I've seen Bo Nix be compared to Mac Jones already. Will it be true? Find out next time. All right, guys. With all of that said, we do appreciate you for watching. Drop some likes, comments, and thoughts about the NFL season so far, week 1, all that good stuff. And give us some ideas for future segments. We're always looking for more ideas if you have any. So drop those. Join us in our Pick'ems battle. And that's all I really got for you. If you got any other words for these people to lead their lives by.
Do I have words of wisdom? Are we getting back to that?
Words of wisdom. Oh my lord.
Throwback whole season, but I do not. But that,
Elijah, can you say 6-7 for me?
6-7.
Sick. All right, somebody make an edit. With that, deuces.
I don't know what this means. Deuces.